I used to take the same route home from work every day, Main Street to 3rd, then a right on Juniper. It was reliable, well lit, and familiar. But one night I stayed late. The office was quiet by the time I left, and the sky had that deep, purplish hue that comes just before full dark. I was tired and just wanted to get home. Then I remembered something. A coworker, Jason, once mentioned a shortcut through a drainage tunnel. Cuts 10 minutes off your walk if you're on foot, he'd said. It's weird but safe. I thought about it for a second. I'd seen that tunnel before, half hidden by overgrown weeds behind the old gas station, with graffiti tagging. Both sides? I figured, why not? I found the tunnel easily. It wasn't too late, maybe 8:30, and the air was still warm. The mouth of the tunnel was large enough for someone to walk upright, though just barely. I hesitated at first. The concrete walls were damp, and a thin trickle of water ran down the middle. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped inside. At first it wasn't bad. The tunnel was straight, about 6 feet wide, and my footsteps echoed back at me. The walls were covered in crude drawings and words, some funny, some obscene. I kept walking, my shoes slipping slightly on the wet floor. It smelled musty, like mildew and wet leaves. About halfway through, I noticed something weird. The light from my phone started flickering, though the battery was fine. It didn't die, just pulsed slightly like it was breathing. I shook it off. Probably moisture messing with the sensors. Then I heard footsteps. Behind me, I froze. They weren't loud, but they were there, soft, deliberate, not echoing like mine. I spun around. Nothing. Just the tunnel behind me, dim and empty. I waited, held my breath. The only sound now was the distant dripping of water. I told myself I was being paranoid and kept moving. A little faster this time. Then I heard it again, closer. I turned again and called out, "Hey, who's there?" My voice sounded too loud, bouncing around the concrete like it didn't belong. Silence. I started walking again. No, not walking. I was speed walking now, trying not to run but barely keeping my panic in check. Every few steps, I heard it behind me. Footfalls, just a beat behind mine. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I started. They started. I reached the halfway mark, where the tunnel dipped a little. That's when I saw it. A backpack, just lying there in the middle of the path, dirty, worn out. The zipper was half open. I glanced at it as I passed, then stopped. Something was wrong. It looked fresh. The kind of fresh that said it hadn't been there long, maybe minutes. I don't know why, but I crouched down and opened it. Inside was a phone, still on. No lock screen. Open to the camera, I picked it up. The last photo showed a dim tunnel, just like the one I was in. And in the background, just barely visible in the corner, was a figure, no face, no features, just a person standing far back, watching. I dropped the phone. That's when I heard the whisper, not loud, not even clear. But it was right next to my ear, like someone was crouched behind me, breathing words into my skin. I turned, my flashlight cutting across the walls, and I saw nothing. But the air felt heavy, wrong. I was sweating, heart hammering. I grabbed the bag and ran. I ran without looking back, splashing through the water, light bouncing like crazy. The tunnel felt longer now, somehow, as if I wasn't getting closer to the end, just moving through a loop. Then I saw the exit, a rectangle of deep blue twilight. I sprinted toward it like my life depended on it. I burst out and collapsed onto the ground outside. My ears were ringing. My heart was thudding. I looked behind me. Nothing. Just the mouth of the tunnel, still empty. I didn't go home right away. I sat on the sidewalk, staring at the entrance, trying to catch my breath. A few minutes later, I saw someone walk out. A guy, early 20s maybe, hoodie? He glanced at me but said nothing, just kept walking. I wanted to call out, ask if he'd seen anyone, ask if the backpack was his. But I didn't. I just watched him disappear into the dark. I reported the bag to the police the next morning. They said there was no missing persons report that matched the items inside. The phone was wiped when they checked it. I haven't taken that shortcut again. Haven't even walked near that gas station. Sometimes late at night, hear it again. Footsteps. Just a beat behind mine. Even when I'm in my own house. It happened when I was 23, renting a tiny basement apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Sheffield. My name's Daniel Harper, and I wasn't making much money at the time, working nights at a 24-hour supermarket, so the apartment seemed like a good deal. It was cheap, tucked below a normal family home, with its own entrance and barely enough space for a bed, a couch, and a desk. It always felt a bit cold and damp down there, even in the summer, but I didn't mind. I liked the isolation at first. I'd moved in that February, and by late March, little things started happening. At night, while lying on my bed trying to fall asleep, I'd hear soft tapping sounds. At first, I assumed it was just pipes or the floorboards upstairs' normal house noises. But then the sounds started getting clearer, more intentional. They began coming from the far wall, the one facing the crawl space that separated my apartment. From the house's foundation, the taps turned into light scratching. Always at night, always just as I was drifting off. One night, curious and a bit annoyed, I pushed my bed away and pressed my ear to the cold plaster. I heard breathing, soft, rhythmic breathing like someone lying on the other side of the wall. I pulled away fast, heart pounding, and stared at the wall for a long time. I told myself I was imagining it, that the sound must be coming from the upstairs family. I wanted to believe that. But it got worse. I started hearing things during the day, 2 quiet knocks when I was in the shower. My toothbrush moved an inch or two, lights flickering even after I changed the bulbs. I spoke to my landlord once, an older man named Mr. Langley who lived upstairs with his wife. He shrugged it off. Old place, he said. Things creak. That's normal. He had this strange way of smiling when he spoke, like he knew something I didn't. I stopped asking. Then came the night I woke up to the sound of movement inside the crawlspace itself. It was a low, shuffling noise, like someone dragging themselves. Over dirt, I sat up, frozen, listening. The sound circled the room from one side of the apartment to the other, like someone crawling just beneath the floor. Then silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I bought a flashlight and opened the small wooden hatch that led into the crawlspace. It smelled awful earthy, damp, like something had rotted. I shone the light inside. Dust swirled in the beam. At first, I saw nothing but dirt and cobwebs. Then I noticed the faint shape of something in the far corner. I thought it was a trash bag at first, but when I crawled in a little further, I realized it was a pile of clothes, folded neatly. Shirt, jeans, socks, all arranged like someone had placed them there carefully. They weren't mine. I backed out and slammed the hatch shut. That night I barely slept, constantly checking the hatch to make sure it stayed closed. Around 2 a.m., I heard whispering. It's very soft, right near my ear. There was no one else in the apartment. I turned on every light and stayed up until morning. I called Mr. Langley again and demanded to know if there was ever anyone else living here before me. He said no. I could tell he was lying. His voice tightened, and he ended the call quickly. I started researching. I found an old article about a tenant who'd gone missing 5 years ago, someone named Marcus Drew, who'd rented the same basement. Flat, no leads, no body, just vanished. That night, I left all the lights on and kept the flashlight under my pillow. Around 3:12 a.m., I woke up gasping. I felt pressure on my chest, like something heavy was sitting on me. But there was nothing there, just silence. Then a whisper. My name. From the hatch. I couldn't move at first. My whole body was stiff, like it didn't belong to me. Then I forced myself to sit up, grabbed the flashlight, and pointed it toward the hatch. It was open. Just slightly, the latch was undone. I stared at it for what felt like hours, waiting for something to come out. But nothing did. In the morning, I packed a bag and left. Didn't even tell the landlord. I broke my lease and moved in with a friend across town. A week later, I drove by the house just to see it in daylight. I almost wished I hadn't. Small window to the basement was open, and someone or something was standing behind it. I couldn't see their face, but they were wearing the same shirt I'd seen in the crawl space, the folded one. Drove off and never looked back. To this day, I don't know who or what was sharing that apartment with me. But sometimes, when I'm in a quiet room, I still hear the scratching. Soft, persistent, like it's waiting to be let in again. My name is Emily Carter, and I'll never stay in a roadside motel again for the rest of my life. It was last summer, a solo trip I'd planned for months meant to be a break from my exhausting job. Little time to clear my head after a messy breakup. I was driving from Manchester to the coast, taking the scenic route, just enjoying the silence and open roads. Around dusk, I realized I'd been driving longer than I planned, and I didn't want to risk hitting a deer or falling asleep at the wheel, so I started looking for a place to crash. Just past a quiet town, there was a faded sign for Pine Haven Motor Lodge. The parking lot was mostly empty, just one beat-up pickup truck near the office. It looked old, maybe from the 70s. With weathered wood paneling and that chipped seafoam paint that gave everything a washed-out look. I should have kept driving. I know that now, but it was already dark and I was too tired to be picky. The front desk was manned by a man in his late 50s, balding with thick glasses and a stiff smile. He hardly spoke, just slid a key across. The desk room 9. Cash only. I didn't think anything of it at the time. My room was at the far end, facing a patch of trees. It smelled like stale smoke and something else. Something faintly sour, but I was too tired to care. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and tried to relax. The mattress was thin and noisy, but the worst part was how quiet everything was. Cars passing. No voices. Just that kind of thick, unnatural silence you only notice when you're alone and wide awake. Around 1 a.m., I was still scrolling on my phone when I heard it 3 knocks. Not on the door, but on the window. Sharp. Deliberate. I froze. The curtains were drawn, but I hadn't seen anyone outside since I checked in. I didn't move, just waited, heart pounding. Another knock, and silence. I whispered to myself, probably a mistake, maybe the wind or a branch, but I knew better. I crept over and peeked through the edge of the curtain. No one there, just the dark parking lot and the trees beyond it. I tried to go back to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I left a lamp on and stayed under the covers. At 2:17 a.m., I heard something else this time from inside the room. Soft creak, like weight shifting on the floor. My eyes shot to the closet. It was closed, but I couldn't remember if I'd checked it when I got in. Slowly, I got up, picked up my phone, turned on the flashlight, and opened the closet door. Empty. Just a broken coat hanger on the rail. But something was off. I noticed. A vent in the back of the closet large enough for someone to crawl through. I leaned closer and felt cold air coming from it. I stared into it, feeling sick. That's when I noticed scuff marks along the vent's edge, like it had been opened recently. I backed away and pushed a chair against the closet door. No way. I was sleeping now. I packed my bag, ready to leave, even though it was the middle of the night. But when I opened the door, I stopped. Lying just outside was a folded piece of paper. No envelope, just a single torn sheet, folded once with something written in jagged, uneven handwriting. Room 9 is a bad choice. They'd like to watch that. My stomach dropped. I looked around, no one in sight. I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and peeled out of the lot. I drove straight until I reached a 24-hour petrol station, parked under the bright lights, and just sat there, trying to calm down. The next day, out of a need for closure, or maybe just to prove I wasn't losing my mind, I tried to look the place up. Pine Haven Motor Lodge didn't show up on any map apps. No listings, no reviews, nothing. I drove back toward the area in daylight, retracing my route, but it wasn't there. The road where I remembered the sign was just trees and an empty field, no building, no sign, nothing. I even asked a woman at a nearby shop about it. She looked confused, said there hadn't been a motel on that stretch in years, burned down sometime in the late 90s. I didn't say anything else. I just left. Sometimes I still wonder if I was just too tired, if I somehow pulled into the wrong place, or imagined more than I saw. But I still have that note. I kept it tucked in a drawer at home. The handwriting isn't mine. The paper isn't motel stationery, just a torn notebook page. Every so often, I pull it out and read the words again, trying to convince myself. It was just someone playing a weird prank. But last week, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a knock. It's not on my door, on my bedroom window. 3 times. And I live on the 3rd floor.